Good afternoon. Welcome to Trail Talk. We're so glad you could join us today. I am not here by myself. My friend and co-host, I'm going to call you a co-host today.
I like it.
Mary, she's back there behind the scenes, kind of making sure we got everything going. Hopefully today, because we have real Wi-Fi service going, we won't have any crazy glitches. If you watched yesterday's and got to the weird buffering part,
That's right.
just hang in there, go back and finish it because it's a good interview. It goes, yeah, it finishes up. Today, we're talking, well, we're here in our classroom studio live at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma.
Correct.
And we're glad you're here too. We're gonna continue with our Oklahoma state symbols and emblems. We're gonna talk about the state fiber today, which might be one of the, it kind of makes me get watery eyes when I'm laughing about. I mean, the state fiber, that doesn't make, fiber to me makes your gut do stuff.
Right, like, yeah. It should be textile.
Maybe textile would be a better choice of words,
Yeah.
but this is what the state legislature.
It's not talking like Metamucil.
It's not, it's not.
Fibercon.
And that's what I think of, okay? Yeah, Miralax or whatever.
Yeah.
It's cotton. What is that, that commercial cotton?
Yeah, something about the life.
The life you live or whatever, I can't remember. Sorry, cotton producers, I mean, no offense. So cotton, one of the state's largest crops, was selected as our state fiber in 2021. I could like to know what the other competitors were.
What were they running? What was cotton up against? What did cotton beat out?
Yeah, because, those other things are like polyethylene glycol, which is a byproduct of a petroleum byproduct.
So
So
number 4.
yeah, so anyway, again, the wrong kind of fiber. The resolution cited that cotton grown in Oklahoma provides feed for livestock, fiber for clothing, cottonseed oil for cooking,
Fabric of our
cellulose,
life.
the fabric of our life.
Sorry, it came to me.
Yes. Cellulose for plastics and high quality paper for currencies. The effort was led by 3rd grade students at Frederick Elementary.
Hey.
Well
so
done, Frederick Elementary 3rd graders,
that-
who must be 6th graders now. They got to go watch in the galleries of the Senate and the House as the resolution was passed. What a great field trip that must have
Right.
been.
Seeing that through.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so, Oklahoma, the Oklahoma History, site has a lot of information about the history of cotton in our state, which we've kind of talked about before when we were going through some cash crop agriculture stuff. But, another site, had some basic information that uses the proper terminology when you're referring to cotton. And so we're gonna talk about some of that. So cotton is planted in late spring. And of course, today, mechanical
Right,
planters are used. Yeah. This is from a more recent agricultural site that this came from. They can plant like 8 rows at a time.
That's
Yeah. Cotton producers today have these thousands of acres of cotton.
and millions of dollars worth of machines.
Yeah, back in the day, my dad's in his early 80s, when he was a boy, like his family had a small patch of cotton. His cousins who lived across the road had a small patch of cotton. We were just talking about this a few days ago. And they had to go out and the kids were responsible for picking those small batches, small loads of cotton. And I guess in those days, a small producer, it, you could make some money at it.
Right.
There's no way you could compete today.
No way.
So during the growing season, they send people out to count harmful insects, make sure there's not too many. If there are,
Right.
then they will spray for those.
Mhm.
They have great pesticides today. About 2 months after they plant them, these flower buds called squares appear. And then about 3 weeks later, the blossoms open, flowers, and the petals change colors as they mature. So you might be driving around, especially Southwest Oklahoma or North Central Oklahoma. A lot of cotton production and see these different colored flowers, and once you know this information, you'll know kind of what stage they
They
are
are
at.
in,
Mhm.
right.
They start creamy white, then they go yellow, pink, and then dark red. And then about 3 days after the red flowers wither and fall off, there are these green pods that are left, and those are called cotton bolls. So if that word boll sounds familiar, we're gonna talk about it later, but the infamous, I should say, boll weevil,
Mhm.
this is when the boll weevil
Comes to be.
gets after his stuff. Anyway, so, then the cotton,
So the bowl's kind of shaped like a
kind
football.
of like a little football, and then there are these moist fibers inside, and they begin to grow and push out from these seeds, and as it ripens, it turns brown. That's what this brown part is around here. That is the bowl opening up, and this is very hard, thick, stiff, and hurts, pointed. These tips, my dad's
Mhm.
talked about how painful that
They would be.
was.
Even the artificial ones you buy. 'Cause you
True.
can buy the artificials now as decoration and things like that.
That's
It
true.
kind of reminds me like a nutshell or something. If it
Yes.
would open it,
Mhm,
you'd be able to
mhm,
have something like that.
A pecan.
Right.
Yeah, how that's like that.
Mhm.
And then the fibers continue to expand in the warm sun. They split open, and this fluffy cotton is what's inside there. I think that is so cool that this fluffy cotton comes
Or
from a plant.
who would think that if you were just seeing flowers to let it sit there long enough to get to this point that it would produce this? Who would say
Right,
they
and
wouldn't
then,
just,
and then decide,
Right.
you know what, this might be a thing that we
Right.
could plant a lot of
Right.
and grow. I mean, did this just grow wild?
or did they
You know?
happen to see that it was this, that, I mean, I don't
It's
know.
It's
I
super
really
cool.
don't.
Anyway, they harvest in the fall, and it's harvested by machine today. And they're put in these big mounds or loaded onto trailers or trucks, and they're carried to the cotton gin. And then the cotton gin is a humongous thing, nothing like
Yes,
Eli
ma'am.
Whitney.
Right.
We have a picture of what he invented. But it cleans, it takes off the burrs, the dirt, the leaf trash.
Mhm.
These saws with these small sharp teeth pull the
Take the
fibers
fibers out.
from the seed.
Mhm.
And the ginned fiber is called lint. So once it goes through all that cleaning process, what's left, they call it lint. And then that lint is compressed into these bales that weigh 480 pounds.
That's a lot of cotton.
That's a lot
That's a
of
lot of cotton.
Yeah. And,
About the size of a refrigerator.
yeah, so they pack that into
It is packed.
almost 500 pounds in the size of a refrigerator. That is dense.
Mhm.
And then they're sold to cotton merchants and textile mills in the US or in foreign countries. And there they have machines that then get it and spin it and make thread out of it, and then make fabric
Bolts.
and make cotton, the fabric of your life.
There you
go.
have it.
There you have it. All right, so this is a man named Colonel Robert Jones. He was Choctaw, and he came to Indian Territory through the forced removal of the 1830s. We've talked about that numerous times on Trail Talk. He owned and operated in 1851, he had a plantation, essentially. It exceeded 5,000 acres. There were enslaved African Americans who worked on that plantation and would harvest about 700 bales of cotton. Now, I don't know if they were the 480
Right,
pound
the same,
bales
considered the same.
at that
Right.
time or not. But then the Civil War, which started in 1861, about 10 years later, brought devastation to farms of all sizes and, brought about kind of the end of that phase of the massive plantations of cotton production, because at the end of the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, well, that happened during, but at any rate, there were no longer.
Times were changing.
Yeah, exactly. People were free. Everyone would be able to be free and go on with their lives. So then there was the recovery of the country had to happen, and, so the cotton farming continued, but, in 1793, that was the year that, the cotton gin was invented by Eli Whitney. And,
That's not smoke, that's.
no,
cotton.
that's the cotton coming out, and you can see how small this is.
Mhm.
But inside that box, it's where those little teeth
Taken apart.
are separating
Separating
the
out.
cotton and pulling out this lint here. And then this is what is packed into the bales, but I thought that this was kind of a cool picture.
Mhm.
Where is that? Well, anyway, the introduction of the, cotton gin is one thing that made cotton production go way up because it, allowed them to
process.
sped it up so much.
More of a,
Um,
mass producing.
right, so I mean, I saw pictures, there was a picture of two children who were in a cotton field, and it was like, one could pick 125 pounds of cotton in a day, but a harvest machine could get 5,000 pounds in a day or
Right.
something
Right.
crazy, you know, they just,
The
yeah,
differences between.
the inventions, technology, all of that, brought
Easier
it,
and streamlined and.
exactly. So, but in, what was going to become Oklahoma, they found that, the climate and the soil and everything was as good to grow cotton as, further southeast.
Right.
And so, cotton production continued. In 1907, statehood, farmers in all but 3 counties in Oklahoma raised cotton. And it was about 1/4 of the state's cultivated acreage. So it was a lot.
A lot of.
Yeah.
Produced.
The most concentrated centered in counties in the southern half, and then north and east of Oklahoma City to the Arkansas River. So up toward Missouri.
Or cotton gins.
Yeah, and they put lint into 500-pound bales. Now, this was in the early 1900s, so possibly, which is 480 pounds today, so it's probably roughly the same. And so they had these plants, then the cotton gins would do all this part, all the separating part, they would put it in those bales. No, then they would haul this stuff
To the plants in which they would.
to the plants, yeah, and those plants were in McAllister, Ardmore, Mangum, and Oklahoma City. And, there were 8 textile plants would purchase that fiber and for their businesses. 37 cottonseed oil mills crushed the seeds using the residue oil for food products, the linters to make paper, the hulls to mix with livestock feed, and the cake and meal to feed animals. So they did not waste.
Every part of that plant, they
I-
break down.
Which, was a practice in, conservation that they probably didn't realize
The impact.
the
right?
impact,
Because
or,
most things at that time, if you didn't use it, you threw it away.
Mhm.
Especially whenever all these new technology and new inventions, things coming about,
Mhm,
people wouldn't take the time to figure out what those extra pieces and
mhm.
trash. could be used
Unless they were taking a lesson from the Native Americans
for.
who never wasted
Right.
anything.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it's hard to say, but I think it's important to know that they were conservationists.
Before it was conservation
Before-
cool.
Yeah, so the boll weevil first came around in 1905, but really attacked the state in 1920. But even then, it didn't slow down cotton production or cotton planting at least.
Right.
Then during World War I, this is kind of a big thing to me. During World War I, cotton, the European demand for cotton drove the prices up to almost 35 cents a pound in 1919. And then a year or 2 years later, no, just a year later, and it lasted, the price went down to less than 10 cents a pound. So you can imagine the investment all of these farmers made.
And people are getting into it, maybe it just got established and then the bottom drops out.
Yes, in a huge way. I can't believe how
Mhm.
much that changed. But Oklahoma farmers ignored it, and about 2/3 of the state were, 2/3 of farmers putting in 1/4 of the state's cultivated land in cotton. And the acreage exceeded 4 million during 6 years in the 20s, with an all-time high of almost 5.5 million acres of cotton planted in 1925. And then income continued to go up. Let me see what my next picture is. Okay, yeah. So here's wagon taking to a cotton gin that was in Muskogee back in those days. And they had just loaded that wagon.
I wonder how,
with that lint.
how did it not fly out?
Well, I'm sure they lost some. I mean, it's a wagon. There's another one right there.
Not like they're going 40 miles an hour.
Right, they may have somebody trailing, picking it up, picking up the loose. In case some falls. I mean, there's a bag with some in it right there, so. And here's some other cotton wagons, I bet.
You'd think they would put something over it, maybe just to help.
Well, that's
Keep
true.
it flying out, it's true, but
Yeah.
maybe it was close.
Yeah, so Oklahoma between 1923 and 1929, cotton was the state's major cash crop and put Oklahoma in third behind Texas and Mississippi.
And all cotton producing states.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a
It's a
big,
big money maker
it was
around.
a big thing, yeah.
Mhm.
So, there were, they, you know how they're always making hybrids of things. They made a couple of types of cotton that
Mhm.
probably like an extension office, like Oklahoma State Extension.
Not
And-
just all of it. but
right,
break it
yeah.
down, Make it go further.
And made it more probably drought was resistant, boll weevil resistant. I mean, they do all kinds of things. And made some varieties that helped increase production, and the amount of trash cost. Oh wait, okay. Instead of the mechanical devices, the technique of snapping cotton gained popularity. So instead of like pulling
it from
the
that bowl
bowl, they would just snap the whole top of it off and then allow a machine to separate it. It increased the amount of trash. So they lost sight of that conservation that they were practicing because they didn't realize the significance of it probably.
Right.
And then there was a cooperative put together, a marketing cooperative. So what these cooperatives do a lot of things. It's not necessarily a union, but it kind of helps protect where these farmers join together. They share some of the burden and some of the
Expertise.
their expertise, and then some of the success.
Mhm.
They're able to share all of that, and they are able to protect themselves from some
Big money.
governmental or big money
Mhm.
kind of things happening. And Oklahoma Cotton Growers Association was formed. And by the end of the 20s, 1/3 of Oklahoma crop was delivered to the cooperative. So, then 1929, the stock market crash,
Right.
everything
crashed.
yeah, the implementation of Agriculture Adjustment Act of 1933 was a forerunner of the government's assumption of regulating production in exchange for income protection. So instead of meeting all of the the supply and demand, instead of having the supply meet the demand, if you put a cap on your supply, then you're able to control the price.
Right.
And then they would give incentive money to farmers to not overproduce. And so
Like
they were
everything
able
had
to
check
kind of
out type thing.
control production and payment. And then you don't run into that thing that happened where the bottom falls out of
You
the
have these
market.
peaks and
Yeah.
valleys. And
Yeah, and so it kind of helps to maintain things a little
Mhm.
bit. Anyway, cotton production, it's like an up and down thing. There was a decline for like for
39.
almost, yeah, to about the end of the century. So there were some things that happened. Fiber, or well, not synthetic fibers were mixed with cotton or brought out, and you remember polyester, people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Polyester replaced cotton because you didn't have to iron it, you could wash and wear it, easy care, you couldn't breathe. Your kids were suffocating and dying when they were playing those little polyester short sets. I'm raising my ears. Yeah. Oh my gosh, but so anyway, then government production control, subsidies, decrease in rural population. I mean, all the things that have affected farming and agriculture over the years had a direct impact on cotton production. So after harvesting more than 1 million acres a year during the 50s, by the 21st century, the number was less than 200,000 acres. And so there was just a continual decline. Jackson and Tillman counties normally harvested approximately 50% of the state's crop in the 1980s. And I have friends who live in Jackson County, which is Altus, now, and they are cotton farmers.
Still
Mhm.
one of them.
Yeah, they are. Of course, Jackson County operates the Luger-Altus Irrigation District. So, irrigation plays a huge role in cotton production.
Crop, really.
Right. It had a direct impact on, whether or not, the cotton, how much it would produce, the number of bulbs that are going to open up.
Actually make it to that maturity.
Right. So there was all kinds of different types of, irrigation, like they would pump water out of Lake Altus, Luger, to the surrounding farms. They would use these sprinkler systems. I mean, all kinds of things. I can remember as a kid seeing an irrigation thing in a field and telling my parents, we need one of those for our wheat fields. We need some irrigation. And I was like, we're not getting an irrigation system. It's, he was not just a farmer.
Right.
He always had other jobs too.
Right.
Technology changes, always had impacts on the cotton industry. You have the mechanical strippers and mechanical this, mechanical that.
Right.
In the 1990s, the boll weevil makes another appearance. This dude is gross.
Yeah. He just.
I mean, I know, I always have to throw a big ugly insect on here.
Mhm.
But these boll weevils, with support of Oklahoma's Board of Agriculture, formed the Oklahoma Boll Weevil Eradication Organization, which I probably would have loved to have been a member just because they're so ugly.
Right.
But they collected fees from growers to control the insects. And so in conjunction with mechanical harvesting, defoliants were sprayed to eliminate plant leaves. And so as crop production became more sophisticated, some growers hired consultants. So they would do away with the leaves and it gave this guy less to eat. Yeah. And then they kept, doing research, science, technology. Having all this big role in
Information
teaching, always changing and updating things. Here's a great picture of them, of a field ready for harvest. And you've seen this dark brown, reddish looking.
Looks almost like popcorn.
Yeah.
Kind of like a popcorn field that's popped.
Yeah, that's true, it does. And then this big line, which comes through and gets
there it is.
fills that, this fits back here. So if we look back again, you can see the big basket kind of thing back there. These little things grab and pull all that stuff off there. Inside the machine, it goes through a little process and then it comes out with these, and what's in this big container then
is the lint.
No, this is what's gonna go to the gin.
That will produce.
And then the gin will make the lint I think I've got
There
it.
it is.
Yeah, and this is like a very modern day situation,
Like
of
it's like
course.
packs and bales and all there.
Yeah, and it's sorting through and cleaning all of that cotton and really making it, into a usable product then. And so, there have been, international agriculture improvement and reform acts, the Freedom to Farm Act, and all these, different, laws that essentially have either benefited or hurt farming. The Freedom to Farm Act authorized producers to plant any program crop in their base acreage and receive benefits for it. Farmers, John Cougar Mellencamp did the whole farm aid
Right,
concert things, and that farmers have struggled for
since the dawn of time, I mean, since
Yeah.
farming began.
Yes, and but there's so much to be said for the people who toil, who even with the help of all the technology they have today, they still have to depend on the weather.
I was gonna say, my family in Kansas are farmers, and yeah, I mean.
Weather
wheat and
dictates
corn and all of it, yes.
All of it.
Hailstorms,
And the government,
rain, wind.
I mean, many of them are so much in debt. If you remember when all the farmers took all their tractors and drove to Washington DC. I mean,
all the
they're
John Deere's and
yeah,
combines and that.
asking for help, and,
Yeah, because without them, there's no economics in the US.
Exactly.
I mean, how do you feed and clothe and
yes.
all kinds of things?
Yeah, without being 100% reliant on another country, and
Right.
you don't
want that.
You don't want that. So, anyway, I thought this was interesting. This is 2023, and this is Oklahoma, but we're top 10. We're still top 10, even though we're down that far. I just didn't realize Texas,
Man,
is the biggest by
Producer.
far,
yeah.
producer of cotton. I mean, I don't know ratio if their size of the state
Has something to do with
has
it.
yeah,
Right.
how much
Production.
feel, how,
Might just be the northern part, or if it's the entire state that's.
Yeah,
capable of
like-
Doing it.
I mean, they have super large cities down there, but, then there's a lot of wide open spaces,
Right.
and so maybe that helps.
Areas for acreage and
Mhm.
farms and things.
Yeah, so anyway, I thought this was an interesting,
That's 1,000 bales, so I mean, we're talking 300 plus thousand.
310,000 bales, produced in 2023, which is not
That's not big
our
enough.
largest that we've ever had,
Right.
but it's not the smallest.
Still in the run?
Yeah,
still
we're
up there.
still a top 10 state.
That's right.
So anyway, but you can see it's all southern states that produce cotton. And it's our state fiber. We're absolutely worth a lesson knowing about it, knowing its impact and
Good job, Frederick Elementary.
exactly. We love it that you guys, well, Frederick is, I don't know if they're Jackson or Tillman. They may be Tillman County.
Those
But, yeah.
represented there.
So they're out there where the biggest cotton production in the state really happens. And, so well done.
Good job.
We're proud of you guys. So anyway, there you have it. Oklahoma State fiber
Stage five.
cotton. And, so that's there's a fun little thing
Lesson
for you
for you.
guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you guys back next week. And, if you don't have tickets, you should come to the Duncan Area Arts Hall of Fame Saturday
There
night.
you go.
Tickets are still available. $75 for VIP, only $35 for general admission.
6:30?
6:30 Saturday night at the Simmons Center. A lot of great entertainment, recognition of a lot of very talented people
Local
from
area.
Duncan and the area. And the Heritage Center, we are presenting Mr. George Rhodes with our Lead Writer Award, and we're very excited to recognize him. So come out and support the arts and have a fun evening. There's this great reception afterward. And with food and drinks and
Music.
pictures and music, and it's gonna be a great time. So we also, I'll give a shout out to Cindy Parks.
That's right. Miss
She's
Cindy.
being inducted into the Duncan Area Arts Hall of Fame. And
She's
her
an alumni from
she
here.
is, and she and her husband Kenny and her son Blake are performing. They'll be the last performance of the night. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Is Heartbeat, I was gonna say
My daughter's
Heartbeat
dancing as well.
is performing Reflections is going to sing there. There's a barbershop quartet. I'm sure I'm missing something, but it's a fun, wonderful, full evening. So come and join us there. We'd love to have you. And we will see you guys again next week. Happy trails.